Okay, welcome to video number 4. So when we left off, we had Lehi living on Elephantine Island in Egypt on the Nile River. And this is where he has the Tree of Life vision. And the point of this video is to show that the Tree of Life vision commands Lehi to leave Egypt and to continue his journey south, which is up the Nile, and eventually into Ethiopia. That is where the Garden of Eden is, and that is where the Tree of Life is. And so that is the purpose of the dream, is to command him to make that journey. Now, in Ethiopia, for thousands of years, there has been a culture of Jews known as Ethiopian Jews or Beta Israel. So before I started this journey into this old world concept, I really didn't know anything about Ethiopian Jews or Beta Israel. And now I've been learning quite a lot, and so I'm going to be talking about them and showing how the Book of Mormon is written by Ethiopian Jews. The Nephites are Ethiopian Jews living here in Ethiopia, in Africa, in the land south, and the rest of the Book of Mormon is going to be told from their perspective. And when you realize that, everything, all the dots get connected and things start to fall into place. Once you learn what their perspective would be, and then we read it in the Book of Mormon. And so we have this culture of Jews in Ethiopia at this time frame, and we just don't have anything like that in America. So we're looking for, evidence of Judaism in ancient America or Mexico or Guatemala, and we're just not finding anything like that. There's just no trace of Judaism in those places. There's no Passover. There's no circumcision. We don't have any evidence of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in these cultures in the New World, like the Aztec, the Mayan, the Hopewell, the Olmec. We're not finding any of that. And so the Ethiopian Jews, on the other hand, is exactly that. They have all those traditions. They're here in Ethiopia, and they believe that Ethiopia is the Garden of Eden. It is the source of the Nile River. It's a very mild climate. It's fertile. They have all the trees and fruits and grasses, which is very contrasted to what we see in the Sahara Desert, just to the north. And so they believe that Ethiopia is the Garden of Eden. And the Tree of Life vision commands Lehi to make that journey up the Nile River. Remember, he sees the river in the dream. Up the Nile River to Ethiopia. And that is where the bulk of the Book of Mormon takes place from their perspective. Okay, I said a lot. The next thing I want to mention is I want to go to Jeremiah 44 and just kind of show you what Jeremiah was saying about the Jews that went to Egypt at the time. And another reason why Lehi is in Egypt and he knows he can't stay in Egypt. And that's when he has the Tree of Life vision that commands him to migrate out of Egypt to Ethiopia. So, I really want you to read chapter 44, Jeremiah 44, on your own. Here, Jeremiah is completely rebuking the Jews that have gone to Egypt. So first, on a little bit of a side note, I want to point out here in verse 2 that he says that the Lord has turned Jerusalem into a desolation. So we see that keyword desolation. And so, you remember my map, my overall map right here. Remember I talk about how Asia is the land of desolation, desolation, and I wrote Jeremiah 44:2. That's what I just read. In my first video, I showed how Herodotus referred to this area as a land of desolation. The line at the narrow neck is the line bountiful desolation. That's in Alma 22:32. That's what separates the continents. And then I haven't brought this up yet, but I want to show this BYU map. BYU apparently has made this internal map. And, this map doesn't fit anywhere in the world. This is one of the hourglass-shaped maps that is just conceptual. And so this is what you would get if you just read the Book of Mormon and didn't try to place it anywhere in the world. So my theory is obviously that this is Africa. The river is the Nile. Ethiopia down here, Egypt up here, and then of course, all throughout the Book of Mormon, they refer to this land north as the land of desolation. So that's exactly what we're seeing in Jeremiah 44:2. And the Nephites knew that, and they refer to that land as desolation. So, going back to Jeremiah 44:2, so that's interesting. That's an interesting side note that kind of connects some dots. So, Jeremiah says, the Lord has turned Jerusalem into a desolation. And then as you go down, I want you to read starting in about 12, and here's where he really starts to tell the Jews that have gone to Egypt that they are going to be destroyed. So you can see here in 12, they shall be consumed, they shall fall in the land of Egypt, famine, curse, reproach. I will punish them that dwell in the land of Egypt, just as I have punished Jerusalem. And basically the concept here that Jeremiah is saying, if you read this whole chapter, is that if you go to Egypt, you'll be destroyed, and you'll end up worshiping false gods. You'll end up worshiping false idols, and you will be destroyed. And that's the concept here that Jeremiah is saying. So when you consider my theory that Lehi has done just that, Lehi map right here, he's done just that. He's here in Egypt, and now he's getting word from Jeremiah that this is a terrible thing, and that he's going to be destroyed here in Egypt, that his descendants will fall into the religion of Egypt. They will, lose their religion. They will end up worshiping idols. They will be destroyed by famine. And this is when Lehi has the Tree of Life vision, and that's what he sees in the vision. He sees the Jews following him and struggling and falling away from the iron rod and falling away into apostasy, where they're worshiping the false idols. So that's exactly what he sees in the dream. And the dream commands him to continue, follow the river. The river's in the dream. Follow the river to Ethiopia. So that's kind of the overall concept there with the Tree of Life vision. I'm going to be talking about a little bit more specific things that are said in the vision that point to Egypt. I'm going to be talking about the fountain in the dream, the forbidden paths in the dream, how they refer to Egypt. The river is shown again to Nephi. Nephi is told that his descendants are going to be killed on that river. And so we see that the entire Book of Mormon takes place here in Egypt, in and around the Nile River, and specifically I'm going to show that it takes place in Ethiopia. So, real quick, I want to mention Genesis 2. Let's see. 2:13. So, Ethiopian Jews believe that Ethiopia is the Garden of Eden, and one of the reasons that they believe that is Genesis 2:13. And it says, "And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia." So you can see right here, we have a connection to Ethiopia and the Garden of Eden. This verse is talking about the 4 rivers of Eden. Now clearly there are other models for where the Garden of Eden is. But what I want to say is that the Ethiopian Jews believe that Ethiopia is the Garden of Eden. And so when Lehi is in Egypt and he's commanded to follow the Nile River up to Ethiopia to where the Garden of Eden is and the Tree of Life, so that all makes sense that he would be commanded to go to Ethiopia, and the rest of the Book of Mormon takes place in Ethiopia. So here's a Wikipedia page about Beta Israel. These are the Ethiopian Jews, also known as Ethiopian Jews. I encourage you to read this whole thing. As we scroll down here, the origin, the traditions, migrants by the Egyptian route. So this would have been similar to Lehi. None of this refers specifically to Lehi. I wouldn't go that far. But one thing I do want to bring up right now, and it's such a big concept and kind of complicated, especially if you've never heard of Ethiopian Jews before. But their national myth is, and it comes from the Kebra Nagast, which is their holy book. It translates to the glory of the kings. in the Kebra Nagast, it says that the Queen of Sheba is from Ethiopia, and she journeyed to Jerusalem to meet King Solomon. That's recorded in the Bible. But what's not recorded is that she becomes pregnant and returns to Ethiopia pregnant. And when her son is born, she names him Menelik. When he becomes a young man, when he becomes of age, he asks about his father, and he makes a journey with his priests and his entourage, so to speak. He makes that journey back to Jerusalem to meet his father, King Solomon. And at that time, when he leaves Jerusalem, he takes the Ark of the Covenant out of the temple. And he brings the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. So what this symbolizes is that Menelik is the true heir of King Solomon because he's his son. And the true religion of Judaism has left Israel and has moved to Ethiopia. So the book says that the Lord has set the sun on Israel and the sun has risen on Ethiopia. And so they have a strong tradition. This is where the Ethiopian Jews get their tradition that they originated from in the days of King Solomon, which is before Lehi. So Lehi would be, when he arrives in Ethiopia, he would be joining this community, this these Jews, and the Book of Mormon that's written would be taking place in and among these Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel, in Ethiopia. So, I'd like you to look at the Wikipedia page on the Kebra Nagast, and you can look into that. Here's just a side note. I was watching on Netflix. This is Digging for the Truth. Season 1, Episode 4, Hunt for the Lost Ark. This all goes into everything I was just saying about how the legend is that Ethiopia has the Ark of the Covenant. And they have it in a temple in Aksum in Ethiopia. And so this was just a really interesting episode that you could watch if you wanted to learn more about Ethiopian Jews, the idea that Ethiopia is where the Ark of the Covenant is, and the true religion. That's what these Ethiopian Jews believe. So that is I forget why I had 38 up. I also just wanted to mention a few other things. In addition to Genesis 2:13 that says that the Garden of Eden is in Ethiopia, don't forget that in chapter 38 of Jeremiah, verse 7, we have an Ethiopian that saves Jeremiah from the dungeon. And then also Numbers 12:1 says that Moses married an Ethiopian woman. And so Ethiopia is kind of sprinkled throughout the Bible a lot more than you would think. And so you've got this situation where you've got Jews in Ethiopia. I'm sure you have native Ethiopians in Ethiopia as well. But you've got Jews that are migrating past Egypt in between Israel and Ethiopia. And that's exactly what Lehi does. He comes down to Egypt, he has the Tree of Life vision, and he follows the river up to where he believes the Garden of Eden was, which is in Ethiopia. That's where he was commanded to go, the Tree of Life. And that destruction that Jeremiah says is going to happen in Egypt is exactly what he sees in the dream. And so I'm going to be going into that more and more in future videos. So I just wanted to present this video to kind of go over that main concept, that the Tree of Life vision that Lehi has is actually a roadmap. And it corresponds to the destruction in Jerusalem, the destruction in Egypt, and the need for Lehi to leave Egypt and continue his journey to Ethiopia. And that is where the rest of the Book of Mormon takes place. So in my future videos, I'm going to be talking more about some of the details of the dream and how it points more to Egypt and how there's more internal consistency, the fountain, etc. So I hope you watch my next video. Thanks.